Alright guys, so we're kind of doing a bit of a different video. We're not working on a car, we're not going to a car show or anything like that. Essentially, if you guys haven't read the description or read the title or anything like that or saw the thumbnail, these are reasons why I would not buy a Nissan Skyline. And when I say Skyline, I'm talking about all generations, from old school to even the newest ones. Essentially, I've owned an R32 Nissan Skyline. For a little bit of background. I'm not just saying this just because. I do own a Skyline, and these are some issues I've ran into, some issues I've seen with lots of friends that have Skylines, Stasias, and honestly this can go for some import. Some of the statements that I will say in this video can go for any import cars as well. The first reason, in my honest opinion, is the price. The overall price of a Nissan Skyline, whether it's a base model or even the highest spec like a GTR, V-Spec, NER, anything, is the price. They're overpriced in my honest opinion. When the R34 came out, or became legal, at least in the US or the States, whatever you'd like to call it, the prices went up. Essentially, you can now pick them up for $20,000-$25,000. In my opinion, that's a little high. And I get it, they have to make money too. But Skyline prices are through the roof. And especially a lot of like your base model, your base specs, the NAs, like it's overpriced in my opinion. I don't think it's worth it whatsoever, especially just for something that is not really all that in my honest opinion. And with the price of overall the car itself, so not only are you out of pocket for the car, you're paying a lot for just the car itself. The parts, and I can safely say this for everything on the Skyline, the parts are the most expensive part. They don't tell you that, and I found out that out the hard way. Sadly, the R32 Skyline that I own, the parts have been the most expensive thing, the hardest thing. For example, yeah, one of my videos, the knock sensors went out. Per knock sensor is $100. Now, if your cast sensor goes out, that's another $500. And recently, my ignition coils have went out. And to go back to the igniter that is known to go out on most JDM cars, such as even my Lexus that I'm sitting in right now, the Skyline's igniter went out and was $500 for a new one. Again, just stuff to look out for. Just do your research and everything. Make sure there's parts you can get in the US. Sadly, for Skyline owners, you can borrow some off of a 240, a 300, any like Nissans in that era. But it is very pricey from the jump. Of course, the car is pricey, but the parts is the worst part. And yes, there are some crossovers, but there are some parts you can't get at all anymore now. Essentially, another example of that is my window switch is broken on two sides, and the sedans is the hardest part to find. My bumper on a sedan is different than a coupe, and essentially that is very, very expensive and very rare to get. And sadly, I have to kind of plastic weld it and jerry rig it, and I'm not proud of it, but it has to be done because I can't afford one, or I can't even find one for that example. Number two, in my honest opinion, this can go both ways. Watch out for rust and Bondo. Now, if you're importing it yourself, so you're buying it from Japan and importing it over to the US by yourself, doing all the paperwork by yourself, be careful of the Bondo, be careful of the rust. Their damage over there, I don't know if they have rules, regulations, but I've seen it constantly where a lot of their cars are just rust buckets, hidden rust, and they'll just respray it over, they'll paint it, they'll do anything to hide it and not tell you anything about it because they know we're going to buy these cars. They know, like, oh, we're a gimmick, a gag almost, essentially. We're very simple-minded. We don't think about those things. Now, some people do, but they really prey on those people that are first-time buyers for a JDM or import car. Again, this goes for all of them. Rust is very common over there. The Skylines are very known for rust. Sadly, on my car, and I don't know if it was from the previous owner or from the importer or what, the whole undercarriage is destroyed. There is rust on the car. Now, it's not significant rust, but there's surface rust all around. I've been trying to fix it as I go on. But as for the undercarriage, there's no fixing something like that, especially over in the US. And again, it goes back to number one is, okay, I got rust on my car, can I get a body panel for it? The answer to that is no. Or how much are you willing to spend to repair something like that as well? You might have to fabricate it yourself. You might have to do the body work yourself. So that's another thing to be prepared for, look out for, check it. Rust is a very common thing on these older cars, and the metal is kind of thin in my honest opinion. When welding on my Skyline, personally, the metal is very thin and you can blow through it real quick very easily if you don't know what the hell you're doing. Coming up to point number 3 for me, I would say, is wiring. Wiring is a big issue, at least on my Skyline. I can't speak for other Skylines. I have heard though that it is a little janky, and I think in one of my videos, I don't know if I did post it or not, but they use this gum substance, or like a RTV silicone, in their harnessing. So I don't know if I have a video or photo of it. If I did, I would show it to you guys for sure. But when I was replacing my ECU, or engine control harness, they added like this RTV silicone. I had to remove it all by hand just to make sure there was no breaks in the wires, nothing like of that sort. And essentially the R32 Skylines, and I think some of the 33s, essentially how the harnesses are, they, instead of routing them from the cabin into the engine bay, they route them from the cabin to the fender well, then back into the engine bay. And if you're going to lower your car, that can cause some issues. And I found that out, sadly, in actually the most, I think probably about 2-3 months ago, during around like Christmas time. I lost complete power into my Skyline. I did fix it. I'd fix it the proper way. There's a video of how to do that as well. Big issue is the fender well wiring. I don't know why they did that. It goes for the cabin, it goes for the engine control module, and it's on both sides too. It's not even just one side. So you gotta look out for that. And also, like, some of your older sensors and stuff is another part of the wiring issues. They can go out. Ignition coils, back to number 1 as far as parts. The igniters are known to go out. I sadly learned that the hard way and had to upgrade it. Knock sensors, ECU, stuff like that, I've all gone through and recently replaced. Oil pressure sensor is also another big one on the RBs. Don't know why, but they're very terrible for knowing to go out. And the worst, I think, is instrument cluster. Instrument cluster has some issues as well, and a lot of people are known to have issues. But I would definitely look out for your wiring. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get parts for it. Again, goes back to previous issues that I've already stated. But yeah, definitely wiring I'd put as number 3. Back to what I said for number 4, I'm going to go back to number 1, is pricing. Now, when I say pricing, I stated with the base models, and I said NA. I don't know if anybody picked up on that or not, but I cannot stress this enough. The prices, like, you'll see a good deal and be like, wow, $7,000 for an R33 sedan. That's a great deal. But there's a reason why it's $7,000, and it's because it probably has the RB20E. The RB20E is the worst motor you can get in a Skyline, or it might be an NADE like I have personally, and I didn't know this. Didn't know they came out DE or anything like that, or even the E, and I'm lucky to have the DE at least, but not the E. The E is the worst one you can ever get yet. If you see an E, it'll be a single head, and I'll pull up a picture right here. The RB20E is the worst spec Skyline you can ever get, and I can safely say I didn't know that even existed until after the fact of owning one and learning about these things more. Do not buy the E. Do not waste your money on the E. Don't even waste your money on the DEs. The DEs are still fun, yes, and you can turbo them. You can do a DE plus T, just kind of like what you do with the 2Js, but just save yourself the buck. Go buy a DET. You'll be so much happier, so much better with it, I promise you. But just keep your eye out for that E. Do not buy that E. That E is the worst thing you could ever get in a Skyline, and people will make fun of you for it if they know what they're looking for. Yes, you might have a Skyline shell, but you still have that E underneath, and some people price the E just as much as they would for a GTE, not GTE, excuse me. Some people would price that RB20E the same cost as an RB25 DET. And yes, the car may look nicer, but it's not worth it. I promise you, you won't have fun in that car at all, and it's miserable. It's hard to sell, and most Skyline owners are well aware of that. And maybe some Nissan people don't know about the RB20E, and it's kind of scary. So when they see a Skyline, they're like, ooh, I'm gonna go buy that. And then now they're stuck with pretty much a lemon, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to read this off my phone. I have written notes. Number 5 is a bit of a miscellaneous. Essentially what I did was reliability. I've seen these cars break down very often, and again, it goes back to the issue with parts. Finding parts for these cars is unbelievably hard. And so if something breaks, it's stuck, it's down for a minute, reliability is not worth it. And if you're putting all that wear and tear on this car, do you have parts available? Are they easy to get? And the answer is that no, they're not. So don't trust this as a daily driver. Have a second car, have a backup. Don't sell your daily for one of these. Trust me, keep that daily, save the money up, and go buy this as a second car. I promise you, it's going to save you. It's good. I've done that myself, where I almost drove this as my Skyline as a daily, but I'm glad that I saved my first car and bought this one as well. As far as another key point in miscellaneous for number 5, I'm also going to put as working on these Skylines. If you're not familiar with an RB or the Skyline at all, highly recommend do as much research as possible. There's not much out there. Join some forums, ask questions, but it's, as far as knowledge goes, it's kind of self-taught. If you've never worked on a car but you like this car, would not recommend this car. This is not the car for you. It's very hard to find how-to videos, and it's, again, self-taught, self-learned. You have to know what you're doing pretty much. There's no owner's manual, there's no nothing. It's all in Japanese, though there are some that have been converted into English. Again, it's hard to find this kind of stuff, hard to find your fixes. It's not relatively known or anything like that, and you kind of really got to do a lot of digging just to find an answer that's may or may not work. I've had that issue myself. Luckily though, I know some things and don't know some things, but the some things I did learn has helped me. And another issue is gatekeeping. I don't know why the Skyline people or RB people are like this, but they gatekeep like there's no tomorrow. Now luckily, I've helped some of my friends that were in a group, or in a Skyline group on Instagram. I try to help them, they try to help us. We kind of help each other a lot of the time, or sell parts to each other and everything. But gatekeeping is a big thing in the Skyline and RB thing. But there are some forums out there, there are some really nice people and everything like that. A lot of people will be like, oh, well, it's already been said here and here and there. But it's like, okay, I'm not having that exact same issue as they are. I kind of need a little more like help on it. But yeah, definitely would recommend, if you are hands-on and everything like that, or you need a video to repair something, the Skyline isn't for you. I promise you, it's not worth it. It's not something that it's like you can go find a how-to video on. And that's pretty much sums it up as to what I think of the reasons why I wouldn't buy a Skyline. Now again, this is all based on my personal opinion, guys. Don't take this to heart. Don't discourage you from buying an R32. These are just things to look out for when buying one, or to look for and see, like, okay, do I have the extra money for something like this? Yeah, I have the money to buy one, but do I have the extra money to fix one as well? Or something like, do I have enough money for insurance? And essentially money does always come down to the boiling point of it all, whether we have the money or not. Some people will waste their entire life savings on something like that. Me personally, I wouldn't. But I bought mine for a dirt cheap price. Didn't know anything about this stuff, and I feel like this is good stuff to know ahead of time for somebody that is looking for an R32 or is looking to purchase any JDM car. Always do your research. I can't stress that enough for anybody. Do your research. Make sure, like, okay, are parts available? Can I get them pretty cheap? Can I get them pretty easily? Can I get them even in the US? Like, can I get them out of O'Reilly's, Advance, AutoZone? Luckily for me, I have crossed a couple part numbers over to Advance and O'Reilly, so I have a parts list as what works and what don't. But yeah, do your research, guys. That's all I can request on this. Make sure you're ready to spend money on something like that as well. But with that being said, guys, I hope you have a great day, a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.